That day I saw the power of insurance. And so when I got back to the States, I was like, well, what am I going to do after 10 years of nonprofit work overseas? Da, da, da. My video degree doesn't do me any good anymore because I'm so outdated. So life insurance, I'm going to help more families protect their loved ones that way. And so I started getting into it, actually got into mortgage protection. And then I learned about the way you can use cash value life insurance as your personal bank for cash-free retirement money, college savings plans, all kinds of uses of this stuff. And I just really wanted to specialize in that. And so that's what I've been focusing on it for the last few years. And that's why I got into it.
Hey guys, welcome back to Ask Me How I Know. I am grateful that you are joining me for this amazing episode. In fact, this episode is touching back on previous episodes in an entirely new way. You know, I'm not afraid to throw myself under the bus or to be a little bit vulnerable. So I'm going to share some of my financial pain points with you. And I think it's going to serve you super well in evaluating where you're at with your finances and with the policies that you currently have in place. Today I have with me Dan Silva, and Dan and I go way back, and we've reconnected like way back into childhood years, but we have reconnected in our adulthood, and Dan is helping me out in tremendous ways. And I invited him to join us on Ask Me How I Know because I said, I think the world needs to hear this, and I trust you, and I am excited to have you. So Dan, welcome to Ask Me How I Know.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, we haven't seen each other in a long time.
It's funny because now that we've been working together, I see you, but it's all virtual, see you and everything like that. And I don't think I'm heading to the Portland area anytime soon, just to be real.
No. And just so your audience knows, you are exactly the way you were in high school. This personality all the time.
Yeah. That points to just be authentically you, and life is really, really simple. Well, Dan, I was super happy that social media exists because we're able to reconnect, and your family, was overseas, and now you're back and we reconnected in this different way. And that was because I learned that you were doing some financial planning that was right up exactly what my pain point was. And maybe you can give us just a nutshell as to what you were up to.
Okay. How about a little origin story?
Oh yeah. I don't know if I've heard the origin story.
Yeah. We were actually, like you said, we were overseas because my wife and I, we started a ministry for orphans and kids living on the street in China. And so while there, we really felt, or at least she felt, that she wanted to open a foster home for some of these special needs kids because they needed more care than they were able to get in the village where their families. Just from short terms. So she found this big house. It was like 6,000 square feet. And it's brand new. And in China, when they finish a brand new building, there's no plaster on their walls. There's no doors in the rooms. It's just the outside shell is done, and you have to do the whole inside. And she comes to me and says, I want to do this. I'm like, we don't have the $25,000 that's going to be necessary to do that. She's like, yeah, we'll see. And then literally that week, one of our board members' wives came to my parents' house. And this is about the time of swine flu. So a few years back, remember swine flu came through? Well, we actually
lost. It was like, 08.
Yeah, we lost Anthony. He was one of our board members, and a great guy. He was the leader of the first trip I ever took to China. And swine flu took him in about 3 days. And so right after we found this building, his wife came to my parents' house, and my dad thought she was going to do some grief counseling, known for years, but she showed up with a check. And she said, Ed really cared about those kids you guys are working with, and I think he would want me to use some of his life insurance money to help out. So the biggest check I've ever written is $25,000.
Wow.
The week we found the building, we didn't even tell anybody we were looking for money, and it just showed up. So that day I saw the power of insurance. And so when I got back to the States, I was like, well, what am I going to do after 10 years of nonprofit work overseas? My video degree doesn't do me any good anymore because I'm so outdated. So life insurance. I'm going to help more families protect their loved ones that way. And so I started getting into it. Actually got into mortgage protection. And then I learned about the way you can use cash value life insurance as your personal bank for cash-free retirement money, college savings plans, all kinds of uses of this stuff. And I just really wanted to specialize in that. And so that's what I've been focusing on for the last few years. And that's why I got into it.
That is so cool. I can't believe I haven't heard the origin story of how you actually got into it, which is really funny. And that's partly what happens, I think, with friends is sometimes you take things for granted and you don't always hear some of those finer details, which is amazing. And here's something else that was like a spark of, okay, I already, am acquainted. Like I've seen you throughout life, from a distance and everything. I'm like, okay. And I know your family. So it kind of like this vetting process. But then when I learned about what the other portion of what you're with Mode Wealth, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And I always tell people, I feel like it's like this boutique concierge wealth management, wealth growth service, because everybody's in-house and they're all speaking the same language and creating policies and just different systems that are complementing each other instead of fighting each other. So you have your attorney and you have your CPA and you have your, life insurance and financial planner and everybody's and more. So is there anything else that you want to touch on? Because I love Mode Wealth.
Well, that's why I joined Mode Wealth, because just being an independent advisor is fine, but to have, a place where you can really give people peace of mind, because that's really what we're all looking for, right? We don't all have the time to go and research every little thing and then tell my CPA I want to do this with my taxes, tell my financial planner I want to do that with my retirement. But to actually have all of those people in the same room talking about you, with you, and be able to figure out, well, Julie, she does real estate, right? She's not looking to do a 401k through her job, she wants to be in more control of her own finances and her own future that way. So here's some paths and options you could take to get there. And everybody's on the same page. So when I found Mode Wealth, I thought that's a great fit, because they needed a life specialist like I am. And it worked out great. So we always start with taxes, which sucks. Nobody wants to talk about taxes unless you're actually saving taxes, right? So we start there because that's the number one place we can free up most money for other purposes. And
I love it. I love the strategies and I love the concept of, really finding as many ways to protect and grow wealth that, we work hard to earn our money and to protect it is really paramount. And that really lends itself well into conversation about infinite banking, bank on yourself. There's so many different names that these policies go by, and they're very advantageous. There's so much strategy involved. And I've had people on the podcast already who've spoken about these, but one thing that people have never shared with are the woes and the pain points of these policies. And I came to you and I said, hey, you offered, we were talking and you offered, hey, you want me to just look over your policy? Yeah. And when you looked over my policy, cringe-worthy moments, let's talk about that. What did you find?
Yeah. Well, first we connected because you wanted to save some money on your taxes as a business owner. And that's what we do. And then through that conversation, I said, well, let's take a look at your policies. You mentioned something about infinite banking, that you had one. I said, oh, that's fantastic. That's why I specialize. Let me take a look at what it is. Hopefully it's perfect. And we got some bad news, right? And so I looked through it, I read through the whole thing, and I saw some possible gaps that were missing. Like the death benefit was huge. The biggest question mark was what are the loan rates if you do want to use the money for something, right? Because some of the benefits of paying for yourself, in case people don't know, is that it's a cash value life insurance policy that you can take loans out of. They're tax free. You can pay them back if you want to. Don't pay them back if you don't want to. The death benefit is the collateral. Basic, right? And so I took a look at your policy for Steve, and he had a very large death benefit. And so I asked you, well, did you buy this for death benefit purposes, or did you buy it for picking on yourself? And you said, well, kind of a little bit of both. I said, well, because to have a good death benefit, we're not going to be able to have much cash value because there's a cash value bucket in the policy and there's a death benefit bucket, right? So we need to call the company, right? So call them up, ask a bunch of questions. The biggest one we saw was call 2. What do we expect the policy to be able to grow to? They said, well, we don't know. Like, okay, well, how does it get credited? Oh, it gets dividends. Okay, what were your dividends last year? Oh, I don't know. I can't tell you that. This is the company. I'm like, okay, so we have no projection at all of what this policy might perform like. Okay, little red flag there. And I said, okay, well, how much is the loan if they want to take a loan on it to use it for some other investment? It was something like 5.6 or 6. I forget the exact number. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
It was big. It was over 5%.
It was significant.
Yeah. So, and you and I called them together, right? Remember that? And
yeah, you have to hop on a group call, give all the clearance, make sure everybody can talk.
Right. And so we got that. It was two bits sad news, and from that, I think your eyes bugged out, and you said, "Oh shoot, this isn't what I thought it was." Right.
Right. And it wasn't what it was present. This was the hardest part for me was, I do a good job looking at who I'm doing business with. I feel like I vet people really well. And so it was really hard to, just be open-eyed and to say, wow, these people weren't looking out for my best interests. And they didn't structure this policy in the way that was going to allow me to reach my goals. And that was really, that I think was honestly the most painful part is like, I believed in somebody and I felt disappointed and like, how? I'm a loyal kind of person. Like if you've earned my business, I'm going to advocate for you. And I had advocated for these people, which made me feel really rotten. I hope, that's a hard pill to swallow as well. So,
well, a little bit in their defense is that when I did ask you why you bought it, you said, well, I wanted the death benefit and cash value. And it was that. But your biggest goal for it was a bigger goal to have the cash value because you could always get cheaper term insurance to cover the death benefit if you needed to. And that's what I usually recommend to people is if you need death benefit, we cover death benefit with term because it's the cheapest. A lot of times, insurance companies call it their loss leader, right? They don't charge hardly anything for term. So,
and that was something that we noticed also on that policy. I think there were some riders on there, and that wasn't the most economical way. And you start looking at, how compensation is to the people that are selling things to you and such. And it's, there's a lot to go on that I didn't know. And, just looking under the hood with you was really revealing as everyone will present their presentations and the presentations are great. And it's like, yes, I get that. I understand that. That makes so much sense. That's exactly what I want. Sign me up. Mm-hmm. But then it's almost like going to the Subaru dealership, right? And you're like, yeah, I want that new Ascent. It looks great on the outside. And then you open the door and it has like cloth interior and no heated seats. This is part of my qualifications on cars. Must have leather, must have heated seats because I live in North Idaho with mud. All this to say, like I bought the exterior of something. And then when you reviewed my policy, it was like opening the door or opening the hood and looking under it and like, wait, there's no engine here. Or that's like not an engine that's going to take me up into my mountains. Like what's going on?
Right. Yeah. So, and that's what's great about these policies too, though, is that they are completely customizable. So when we go through your list of what you're looking for in it and what you guys need, we just kind of say, okay, well, we want the most cash value, we want to grow as fast as possible. We want to have that accessible. We want the loan rates to be extremely reasonable, so that the loan doesn't eat up the policy if I decide not to pay it back, right? So we shopped around. We found a couple of different options through companies. I didn't even tell you about all of them I looked at. That's actually the best one because and also so we used one of my companies that I liked the most because they do have this loan rates. So they have one loan that's a walk loan. So they actually credit you the same amount they're charging you. I don't know why they do it that way on their paperwork, but that's how it works. So this actually ends up being a 0% loan to you. Other options where you can actually keep it earning the same interest you're earning. We got you the index policy. So it's based off what the stock market does. Stock market goes up, you participate in that up to, I believe yours is like 11.75%. So you can earn up to 11.75% a year, and guaranteed not to lose a dime if the market crashes that year. So that's the fastest way you can grow, right?
Right.
And then we bought the smallest death benefit possible, because this is how you can know if you're really talking to a salesperson or just somebody who's really trying to design something for you. So we'll make sure they're getting the smallest death benefit, because that's what their commissions are based off of, is death benefit. And you're not buying it for death benefit, you're buying it for cash value. So there's a margin. I always call it guardrails that the Congress has put in place. It's in section 7702 of the tax code. They just revised it and actually made those guardrails wider. So now you can actually more cash in there for even less benefit than before. So that's pretty amazing. That happened just in January. So yeah, you want to, so there's that margin of error. So maybe you have to have, so just say you want to save $25,000 a year, right? Okay, well, maybe you have to have, before you'd have to have $1 million death benefit. Well, now you only have to have a $570,000 death benefit. Okay. And then the rest of that money is all going into the cash bucket. And that's the cash bucket that's going to get that 11.75% when the market does well, or anything between 0 and 11.75. But if you're going to do the same premium, $25,000 to $1,000 a year into a policy like you had, the commission would have been about $26,000 to the guy who sold it. But when it's optimized and we buy as little death benefit as possible, that same money, the commission is only $7,000. So you can see why agents will try to, design it wrong on purpose sometimes, saying, well, that's cost of doing business. They have the same business too. But I don't like that. So here was right for you. We got you the smallest death benefit, so the most cash, and it would just grow a lot faster.
It's so powerful. Now, I've spoken on this on the podcast. So if you're listening and you've been following with the podcast over the last, 130 episodes, you've heard about this. You've heard me speak about the concepts of infinite banking, which we already said goes by lots of other names. But this is one of my strategies for investing in real estate is if I can grow this money over here, I want to have a life insurance policy in place already. I want to have these other structures in place, but it can be that same dollar is doing multiple jobs when it matures to a point where I can borrow against it. So what are some of the other pain points? That was my aha, like wide-eyed moment. And so let me restructure my question. Okay. Some people will say you need to use a universal index life insurance to accomplish this. Some people say, no, you have to use whole life insurance, and they'll argue for that. Mm-hmm. And so can you speak to the value of understanding how to structure this? Because not every person who sells life insurance actually knows how to structure the policy. So let's talk about that, because I think if you're listening, it's not like, oh, just go to your local, insurance, life insurance person, and they'll set you up the right way.
That's true. Yeah, you definitely have to have a specialist who has studied it, run thousands of illustrations and seen what every little button does, and really just studied it, because the biggest difference is with index universal life, it's based off of the most common is the S&P 500. Okay, so the S&P 500 goes up, and you participate in its ups. You don't participate in any of the downs, so it's still safe. It's not going to ever lose any money on your cash value because of stock market fluctuations. But it is considered more aggressive because it doesn't have the guarantees like whole life does. Whole life says we guarantee to pay you a dividend when dividends are available. Okay, oh, but we pay dividends for every year for the last 30 years or something like that, right? Like, oh, great. Well, can you share with me what some of the dividends are? Like we did on the phone with your company, previous company, right? And they said, no, we can't. Like, why not? It should be there, right? Like, they wouldn't tell us. I don't know why. Some companies do publish them.
So fishy.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But with the best guarantee that index universal life has is that we guarantee that you're not going to lose any money, right? So if the stock market crashes that year, you're not going to be able to earn any interest on your money that year, but it's not going to go down like it would if it was in a 401k or any other stock, direct investment like that. So some people really like the guarantees of whole life, and they want to have that big death benefit for inheritance reasons, right? Because they want to be able to because it's always gets to the heirs tax free. As we know about life insurance, it's always tax free. So that's one of the big reasons people like whole life, is because that's there at the other end. Where if we're using the indexed universal life, it's still there, but it depends on how much you've loaned out of it. But whole life is the same thing. So honestly, people like to sell guarantees. They like to sell more growth options. And I like the growth options personally.
Yeah, growth options are really powerful for everyone. I want to grow the money.
And a minute ago, I mentioned $25,000 a year into a policy, and most people before I was with Mode Wealth would go like, you can do that. I'm like, well, business owners. And then like, but business owners don't have that much profit. I'm like, it's true, because they're tipping the federal government too much. And that's why I was so excited to join Mode Wealth, because like, okay, well, look, we just found $25,000 that you've been sending to Uncle Sam for years. You should actually have to if you follow these other strategies that our strategists just put together for you. So I'm like, well, you just freed up $25,000. Let's put it over here now. And now we're saving it for the future. We can use it for other investments. So that's the other thing is, when it's structured properly with the IUL, we're averaging about 6 to 8% with an IUL on your cash. You can borrow the cash out, say at 3.5%, and they're still going to credit you the 6 or 8% averaging as if you hadn't taken anything out. So say you have a $500,000 cash value in there, you borrow $300,000, they're still going to pay you the credit on the $500,000. So you're paying 3.5 on the 300. So you still got that arbitrage of gaining money on money that's not even in there anymore. So you can take it out, go make money with it in syndication and whatever else you want to do, and then come right back and put it back in later if you want to. So that's the powerful power of it, and why I love being with Mode Wealth, to be able to find those funds for people like you who want to have control of their wealth.
That's right. Well, and honestly, just to speak to what Mode Wealth has done for my family, and that is, let's be real. You can't be a master of all of these things. Like I cannot be a rock star real estate investor and a rock star CPA and a rock star wealth strategist and you cannot effectively. Okay, somebody can. I have to backtrack. Somebody can. God bless you. I cannot.
I think all of love our kids too much and our spouses, right?
Right, exactly.
I have 25,000 extra hours to spend on this thing and that thing.
Exactly. And so finding that, like having that partnership, it's the first time, like Steve and I've been looking for this. There's Tom Wheelwright out there, but that structure was larger. It was bigger. It was a bigger entity than we wanted to participate in, and to be part of something boutique where people and you can make those phone calls and speak with them and they know you and you're not just a number. And then you're growing that wealth and learning strategies that are all, and I love that it's all like ethical, by the book strategies, but they're there for everybody to use. And so having you guys, structure everything to say, okay, this is the plan and let's go.
And also one of the big differences I've found too is that, we look at our competition, of course, right? A lot of people are just saying, hey, learn the 25 different strategies that save business owners money on their taxes, right? It's like, well, again, I don't have time for all that. So what our strategist does is actually, we do it on our dime, on his dime really, is that he will come up with a blueprint for every client of ours before we charge them anything. And we'll say, these are the 5 strategies that work perfectly for you. Actually, these 3 you can do right now. These 2, once you hit, 225,000, something like that. So we'll say, this is where you are today. This is what we can use to save you now. And as you grow to this level, we'll implement these other 2 as well.
And I love that element right there, because we are growing and changing. And so, okay, well, when your income is at a certain point because your business has grown, we're not going to be using the same strategies. We're going to be adapting them and enhancing them or changing them in some way. Like, you have to be nimble about all of this.
Yep. And it's more of the, DFY, right? Done for you model, rather than here, let's learn about 50 different strategies and figure out which one's best for you. Like, no.
I have not DFI, and I like that instead of DIY. I'm like, yes, please do it for me, please. And what other elements would you like to add? I know that you have you do have a presentation just to give like general overview if this concept's new to everyone. And you guys are like, please make sure you connect up with Dan and, you schedule a time to see what works for you, because you are different than anyone else. But before we wrap things up, I want to give you an opportunity to make sure you speak to anything else you would like to speak to.
Wow, that's a big window there.
It is a big window. It's a big topic.
It's a big topic. And a lot of people, we just don't have time to try to think, have that much brain energy to figure it all out, right? So yes, I do have a presentation to share with anybody who's interested to see. You don't have to read 20 books to figure it out. And I really like to get to know people and see what their goals are and figure out where they want to go. And we have strategies that will fit anybody's goal, right? So whether, a cash value policy is right for you or not, I don't know. But it's not right for everybody, obviously. So some people really like to invest in real estate or life insurance or the stock market. And I say, why not just do it all?
Right.
Right people on your team to help you decide what's going to be best fit for you and what's most likely going to get you to the scenario you want to see for yourself. So, yeah, anybody can book time on my calendar, and I'm happy to share a little more about Mode Wealth and help you explore some options.
And I love that it's not cookie cutter, because everybody is different and everyone's needs are different, and it's worthwhile. So if you are listening to this right now and you're like, well, this sounds interesting, but I'm not sure, you can already tell, I like the good nature of Dan is I will look at things for you. And I asked him, I'm like, can I just offer a free policy review to all my listeners? He said, yes. So if you have some policies in place, but you're not really sure, because honestly, when we trust the people that we're working with, as I did, I trusted, they explained things to me, I understood it. And then ultimately the policy wasn't the best policy for me to reach my goals. So, having another person review that to say, yeah, what are your goals? And now let's look at this policy to see if that's going to take you to your goals. And let's throw in there that I actually have another policy that's years old. And Dan's like, I didn't even realize what I had because it was created before I even knew anything about infinite banking things. But you're like, this is a great policy.
I was hoping I could say that about all your policies, honestly.
I know.
So bad news, but yeah, the other one is a great policy, and I said absolutely keep that one. But for your income banking, we need to do a little tune-up on this thing.
Exactly. So it's not I exited one and I kept another, and we relaunched a new policy with you that's really going to help us reach our goals.
Yeah. And that's it. You just got to figure out what the goals are, what you really want to do, and risk tolerance. A more conservative person whole life might be better. Mm-hmm. But somebody who's a little more aggressive, the IUL is going to be a better fit. So it all depends on goals, what you're trying to do, and even if it's a fit at all. So
I love it. And if you're talking to somebody and they're trying to sell you a policy and they're like, this is the only way this is the best way. You should absolutely use universal life, or you should absolutely use whole life insurance. I would say, would you agree that's maybe a red flag? Like, maybe they don't know how to structure things.
Yeah, because it's these, I mean, especially with index universal life, is so customizable that you really need somebody who understands what your goals are and what is important to you. So, and same with whole life. I mean, you just need to really trust that they're looking out for your interests, make sure that they're asking you more questions than anything, and making sure that they're clear on what you're trying to do and the purpose of everything behind it.
Love it. All right, Dan, as we wrap this up, what is the number one best way for people to reach out and connect with you for a policy review or to just learn more about, life insurance policies to reach their goals?
Go to my booking page, talktodan.online. So it's online instead of .com, it's .online. So talktodan.online.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Ask Me How I Know.
Yeah, thanks.
Until next time, you guys make sure, if you're listening, make sure you are wide-eyed and aware of what you have structured in place working for you, because if you are not confident it's working for you, it might be working against you, and you might be feeding an alligator. You might just be putting money into something that's actually not going to serve you well and create the legacy that you were looking to do. So make sure, go to talk to Dan. online. Until next time, go find your freedom. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. This episode was brought to you by 3 Keys Investments. They are dedicated to helping people like you, my awesome listeners, develop passive income and legacy wealth through multifamily investing. Feel free to check out their website, 3keysinvestments.com, to see if there's an offering that will help your portfolio grow and meet all of your needs. If you haven't already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, all of those bells and whistles, I would be absolutely honored if you would do that for Ask Me How I Know. Thanks again, and go make it a great day.